There's not many things that will make me question my faith, but about a year ago, one of the most God-fearing men I've ever met in my entire life got cancer, and it automatically made me think, like, why would God allow that to happen? Better yet, why do Christians get sick? Quite frankly, it was a question I didn't even want to ask my pastor or anybody else because I didn't want them to think that my faith was wavering because of it. And so I went digging around online to try and find the answer for myself. And this is one of the books that I came across, Why Christians Get Sick. The truth was, my original thought was wrong to begin with. My original question or frame of mind was wrong to begin with. Because first of all, God does not make people sick, right? That's not biblical at all. One, because that doesn't align with covenant at all. But two, you would also be implying, if you believe that God makes people sick, you would also be saying that people are disobeying God when they try and get better. And we know that's not true. That's really dumb if you think that. One of the most interesting things he says in that book, right? I think his name is George H. Malcolmus, right? When you read that book, it's a little bit extreme, but one of the best things he says in that book is we are violating God's law. Not law like the laws that are written in the Bible, but principles that God has woven into the universe, right? There's things like gravity, things like the ability, so manifesting, for example, right? Manifesting, when you hear these new age spiritual people talk about manifesting is not some new age spiritual concept that they came up with. They just read Genesis chapter 1 when God spoke everything into existence. And then it says in Genesis 1:2-6 that we're created in God's image. If we are created in God's image, then we also speak things into existence. Maybe not like literally, like you can speak a car into existence. Proverbs 18:21, the power of life and death are both in the tongue. And when you violate God's laws, when you violate God's principles, there will be consequences for those actions. Not that God is punishing you, but when you violate those, there will be an opposite effect to them. And he talks about it in the book, and I also really agree with this. We violate God's law on how we should eat all the time, especially if you live in America. I called up my parents yesterday because they went on a trip to Germany, and I just wanted to check in, see how everything was going. And they started talking about the food. Not only was it so good, it tasted so good, but also when they were looking at the ingredients on the foods, on labels, on the ketchup inside the restaurants, it was 3 ingredients. When you do that around here in America, it's 20, 30, 40 ingredients on most foods. That's because they were trying to poison everybody. And I don't want to get too conspiracy on y'all. I don't want to go off on a tangent. But you have to understand that they profit off of us being unhealthy, right? The people that own the food companies are the same ones that own the pharmaceutical companies. So if they can make you unhealthy so that you need the medication to solve that, then they'll give you more medication to solve the side effects from the previous medication that they gave you. And then it's just this endless cycle where you're a permanent customer making them money. They will sell out your health if you do not take accountability, if you do not take the action to control what you eat. So how does God actually want us to eat? Stop eating how average people eat. Stop eating heavily processed foods. Stop eating a bunch of seed oil. Stop consuming food that isn't even real food. It's crazy to me that people think it's an extreme diet when you do red meat and eggs and butter and stuff like that. Like actual foods that, 1,000 years ago, 3,000, 5,000 years ago were actually around. But if you were to sit and eat Oreos every day, or you were to sit and eat a Dorito every day, what even is a Dorito? People don't bat an eye at that. That's how programmed we are. That's how brainwashed we are. Now, if you're asking, what should I eat then? Just make it 1 ingredient foods. If it is a food God made, you're probably cool. And with a few exceptions, red meat, eggs, vegetables, fruit, grass-fed butter, salt, repeat. That should be 90% of your diet. If you want to throw in mixed nuts, some cheese, something like that, that's perfectly fine. Speaking of all those pharmacy companies and such that I was just talking about a second ago, you understand that most diseases that we have come from excess sugar, right? And sugar is also a carb, and they just throw carbs and sugar into everything that we eat. That's all intentional so that people get more sick. They constantly can't stay healthy. They become a lifelong customer. You have to break out of that. It almost is like a matrix in a sense. Eat more real food. All of this stuff is tied back in with your Christian walk. The idea of being Christian is not just so you can get saved and go to heaven. If it was, when you got introduced to Christ, when you got saved, God would have just sucked you up to heaven. He did not. Why? Because Christ died for a relationship, and we are called to continually get better. Self-improvement, I know people try and act like you don't need to get better. Self-improvement is even a biblical thing. When you think about the original intention for everything, right? God put an original intention for everything. And when you look in Genesis and you look in the story of Genesis, you can find God's original intent for anything. God put us in a garden. What does a garden do? A garden has to continually get better. And if you do not tend to it, if you do not nurture it, if you do not water it, it then starts to die. A garden does not stay the same. A garden is either getting better or it is dying. It is either growing or it is dying. You are the exact same way. You are either growing or you are dying. You are either getting better or you are getting worse. Accept that. That's just a fact. If you are not, you ever heard the saying, use it or lose it? And that ties back in with your diet. That ties back in with fitness plan. That ties back in with Christ-focused self-improvement. That's why I talk about it. People get mad at that for some reason. It's like the thing I've been talking about on the internet for like a year now. Christ-focused self-improvement. They go hand in hand together. Christ-focused self-improvement is what I teach. We have a free community for young Christians down below. Go check it out. Subscribe for more. I'm constantly trying to post daily. Like this video if it helped you out at all, and stay blessed. I'll see you tomorrow.